Well, good morning. So I think I'm luckily not the only thing that's standing between you and lunch, but I think what we're going to do today is have a lot of fun and talk to you about some technology that can really help your agencies grow. One of the things I'd love for you guys to do is follow me on Twitter. As I travel around the world, I also update that with great government case studies of how others around the world are leveraging social. So let's get started. You heard from the last speaker, and he talked a lot about this is the Facebook era. And one of the things that we've been looking at are major IT trends that have impacted business and government agencies around the world. So it started with the mainframe when we automated work. Then it went on to departmental, where we decentralized our work. Then the PCs, where you got to bring work home. And then the internet. You know, a technology that was funded by the government, but really used extensively with university students and kids. So much so that a lot of governments and a lot of businesses at first said that the internet would never be used for business. And we are today entering into this fifth era of IT called social. Has much of the same characteristics of the internet, where a lot of governments and businesses are still saying, you know, that might just be for my kids or for Chris who got the new iPhone, but not for driving our business or our government agencies. So what I'd like to do today is to show you that leveraging social inside of the government agency can help you to drive return on investment, both in terms of cost savings as well as really increasing satisfaction of your citizens as well. So let's focus in today on this fifth era called the social era. Now, as we look at social and how it impacts government, we see four characteristics that come out of government agencies that will focus around this whole area of social. The first is that they're more engaging, meaning they engage their citizens, they have a two-way dialogue, they're not just pushing information out, or worse, not being understood of what value they bring. Secondly, they become more transparent because information is shared at lightning speed and shared when it matters to who it matters to. Finally, it helps an agency be very nimble, meaning that you can take social analytics and understand what some of the issues are and then be able to address them much quicker. And finally, one that I think is really important is that you become much more trusted. You have a way to secure what needs to happen. We have found in our studies that those businesses and agencies who leverage social in their business processes or their agency processes are more likely to become successful. In fact, 60% of those who are successful today leverage social somewhere in their business. So how does cloud computing fit into this? Well, cloud computing is another choice of deployment. It helps agencies consolidate, to share infrastructure, to save energy, to optimize resource, become more productive with shared services. And so I'm really thrilled that we have a cloud-first model where we can look at cloud as an deployment option, sometimes combined with on-premises, but as one of the deployment options that can assist in running an agency. Today, one of the things that we are announcing is something called the IBM Smart Cloud. This is enabling social collaboration for government, those characteristics that we just talked about. It is FISMA and FIPS compliant. Has dedicated clouds for state, federal, and local. It has the market-leading social collaboration inside of it, and one of the things that I love is it supports all the mobile devices. So on my iPhone, hopefully iPhone 4S coming up, all of the collaboration tools I can get at my fingertips on my mobile device. Now, what does this cloud enable you to do? Well, traveling around the world and working with hundreds of thousands of customers and agencies around the world, we found that leveraging collaboration in an agency can help you become much more productive and to have more of your constituencies higher satisfied. So one of the things that we've developed is a methodology of how to approach social and deployment on that cloud to be much more successful. So what I'll do really briefly is kind of touch on these steps of leveraging social and collaboration inside of your government agencies. So we're going to do some examples around alignment of goals and culture. And then we'll talk about that whole area of trust. How do you generate trust? That's so crucial. How do you engage through those experiences and network your agency's processes? How do you make sure that you're designing this cloud for collaboration, but that is secure, that has the right risk mitigation plan and protects your reputation? And then, of course, one of my favorites, which is analytics, the new black in the marketplace today. So let's take a look at that first area of the way you would start to deploy and look at a particular social collaboration. Now, you're not going to start with just the technology. You're going to start by looking at the goals that you have for adding social into your current processes. The example up on the chart is one of my favorites. It's the USDA. And one of the things that they've done is they have looked at this and making sure that they can align their goals of disseminating the appropriate information about farmers and about the food that they produce and getting that information out into the marketplace in a social way so that citizens in the United States can consume that in a way that is perfect for them, whether that's on Facebook or on Twitter or on community sites that the USDA does. This all started by understanding the goals that existed and matching the culture. One of my favorite sayings is that culture eats strategy for lunch. So no matter what your strategy, if your culture doesn't fit it, you won't be successful. The second step after you look at your goals and your culture is really around how to gain trust. And trust is a very important element in collaboration. You tend to collaborate with those that you trust. And so another great example here is the Department of Veterans Affairs. The interesting thing I think about this is that they collaboratively decided what areas of focus needed to happen in their social world. What were the areas that veterans really needed to make sure that they got information about? And here you can see the 4 areas that they've chosen: returning veterans, benefits, cemeteries, careers, to make sure, again, they're generating trust. They're asking for opinions, listening to the information, and then making sure that that shows up in the way that they deliver services to their constituents. The next area is on engagement. And we encourage all government agencies to have an engagement strategy, just like we do in the private sector. How do you make sure that you're moving your citizens or those who are interested in your information? How do you make sure that you move them from being a spectator to being a participant with you? There are multiple elements that you can leverage here. We've worked with many government agencies on things like gaming, ensuring that you have an integrated front and personalization, but probably one of the hottest areas today is mobile. In fact, Chris talked about it up front about the iPhone 4S. So let me give you one example of an engagement strategy that was used at the Super Bowl. I don't know how many of you got to go to the Super Bowl, but all of the security that was done at the Super Bowl was actually done using and leveraging social collaboration, bringing together over 40 federal agencies, state agencies, local officials to make sure that they protected and secured the entire facility. And again, this was done leveraging social tools and social collaboration to engage those agencies in one conversation so that they could protect those who were there in that particular facility. Now, after engagement, so we talked about aligning your goals and your culture. Culture eats strategy for lunch. We used the example there of the USDA, and then we went through that trust mechanism, and we talked about the Veterans Association, how they're leveraging social collab to better serve their members. And then we just showed you the Super Bowl and protection there with mobile devices to engage the law enforcement officers. The next area is really around determining where you will start, what process will you social enable. If you look at some of the processes today, these are also in order of how businesses and governments around the world are adding social into their environments. You can see marketing and customer service, A lot of governments are leveraging marketing and the way they market their country and the benefits that they have, usually number one. Number two is on policy and service development. In fact, here USAID leveraged social and something we call a JAM, social collaboration gigantic chat room session, or Twitter on steroids, to solicit input on what the next steps would be. And then we see a lot of agencies leveraging social in a operational or a human resources perspective. So adding that social collaboration inside of their agency so that they can share information. So understanding how to social network your processes and understanding where to add social is also very crucial. Now, if you go on to the next step, which I think is really important, and this is where a lot of people have the most objection to adding social in, is around making sure that you're designing this so that you are secure, that you are mitigating risk, because you can't avoid the risk, and that you're protecting your reputation. I was just on a plane ride up to Canada the other day, and I was with a whole group of chief executive officers. And one CEO told me that he had decided to opt out of social. A really funny concept to me, because you can't opt out. And the reason he wanted to opt out was he was concerned about the risk. And the point is that you can't avoid the risk or eliminate the risk. You can mitigate the risk, because here people will talk about you, and the best thing to do is to make sure that you're engaged in the conversation. So one of the things that we propose as part of our social business and social collaboration for government agenda is to make sure that we develop a risk mitigation plan, a security plan, and a reputation management plan, so that you have a way to respond, that you're listening and understand what is being said, and that you're having a very transparent and two-way conversation. Much like here you've seen FEMA do, as well as President Obama when he engages citizens around the world, protecting reputation. The final area is social analytics, and this one to me is really important, because what it does is it helps you to listen to the dialogue, understand what's being said, what needs to happen next, and ensures that you are focused on what we call the right people, or the tippers, the opinion leaders. This is a great story done by one of our great partners called Deep Mile. And the interesting thing is they looked at what happened in Egypt. And they looked at the tweets coming in, some 25 million tweets that came in. And using analytics, were able to determine those who were influencing most people. And in fact, my daughter was disappointed to know that Justin Bieber wasn't the #1 tipper in this particular situation, even though he had the most followers. So carefully understanding your constituencies and your citizens to know who is that opinion leader, who is the person that's going to impact others in your particular area, is really important, and something that technology, social technology and analytics can help you determine. So one of the things I'd love to end with is to ensure that you guys understand how to add social to your agencies. Just from traveling around the world, we at IBM are very committed to helping U.S. government agencies to add social in as a way to make yourselves more competitive, to reduce cost, and as well to make our government more productive. So we've got several things you can do here. You can also see me outside. In your packages, you were given a book called Get Bold. Inside of that book, we outline this social agenda for government and for businesses. And what it enables you to do is to build your agenda for your agencies. And we would love to help you with that. Inside of the book are over 75 case studies, both from the private sector as well as the public sector, to help you get going. And I'll just end with this. You know, we started with those 5 errors, right? The last one being the internet. And if a business or a government chose to be a fast follower in the internet era, it was really okay, because you could catch up with technology and you could catch up with money. But in this particular space with social, this is really not about technology only. It's technology and people and relationships. And because of that, time matters, and a first mover advantage is really important. Forming those relationships today with your constituencies and your citizens, those are who are involved with what you are working on or what you're trying to do for the greater good, is time sensitive. And those who get there first will form those relationships faster. So I hope that you join me outside here in a few minutes to further this discussion. And I'd love to help any and all of you build your agenda for adding social collaboration for your government agency. Thank you very much.